I woke up in the ICU with blinding white lights stabbing my eyes, head throbbing like a hammer, throat parched, monitors beeping in steady judgment beside me. No one waiting. No mom Helen, no dad Paul, no brother Levi. No flowers, no overnight bag, no jacket carelessly draped over a chair. Just sterile emptiness and the sting of disinfectant in the air. I forced the memories back. That stormy night on I-70, rain, hammering the windshield headlights, cutting through the dark brakes, going dead, then the violent crunch of metal. Car accident. Now I was here breathing but completely alone. A week passed in a fog of painkillers and fractured sleep. Then Mom walked in, skin glowing with fake tan from the Maldives getaway with Levi and Dad. She stepped closer, voice overly cheerful. "You're finally awake. We were so worried." Nurse Adriana entered, holding a tablet, glanced between us, then spoke carefully. "Someone's been coming here every single night since you were admitted." Mom stiffened. "He never enters the room. Just stands in the hallway watching through the glass." Adriana turned the tablet screen toward her. The instant Mom saw the name, her face went ghost white. Hands shook so violently the tablet almost fell. She breathed barely audible. "No, that's impossible." I stared at her pulse hammering louder than the machines. "Mom, what is it?" She quickly powered off the screen, forced a thin smile. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just, some stranger has been visiting you." "Who?" She refused to say. But that raw panic in her eyes screamed that something was terribly, deeply wrong. And I was going to uncover it no matter what it cost. If you've ever woken up in a hospital bed, family nowhere in sight, only to learn a mysterious name has been showing up in the visitor log every single night, drop a comment below and share your story. I read every single one. My name is Caitlin Gray. I'm 29 years old and I work as an emergency room nurse at University Health in Kansas City, Missouri. My shifts run 12 to 14 hours overnight, handling everything from car wrecks and heart attacks to gunshot wounds and overdoses, the kind of cases that keep you on your feet until your legs feel like lead. I've learned to stay calm when the trauma bay is screaming chaos, but lying in this hospital bed now surrounded by the same machines I push patients onto every night, everything feels different. The beeps aren't background noise anymore. They're counting the seconds of my own survival. My family lives in Overland Park, a quiet suburb about 25 minutes west of the hospital on a good day. My mother Helen runs the house like it's her personal command center. She always said Levi was the family's shining star, the one with real potential. My younger brother has been chasing a professional golf career for years, tournaments across the country, sometimes overseas, each one demanding more money than the last. International flights, five-star hotels, private coaches, custom clubs that cost thousands. Dad Paul has chronic heart issues and type 2 diabetes. His medical bills arrive like clockwork, stacking up faster than anyone can pay. I've been the one keeping everything afloat. Over the past 5 years, I've sent more than $100,000 to cover Dad's prescriptions, hospital stays, Levi's entry fees and travel expenses, house repairs, even a new car so Levi could get to practice without borrowing. Every time Mom called, her voice would soften into that familiar tone. "You're so strong, Caitlin. Just this once for Levi's big break." And I always said yes, even when my hands shook from exhaustion, as I typed in the transfer amount after a 16-hour shift. 3 years ago, an insurance rep visited the hospital during a staff wellness day. He pitched a life insurance policy tailored for healthcare workers, affordable premiums, high payout if something happened to the primary earner. "Protect your loved ones," he said. I signed up for a $500,000 term policy. The beneficiaries were Mom, Dad, and Levi. At the time, it felt responsible, like the adult thing to do for the people who raised me. I never imagined I'd need it, or that they might count on it. Lately, the exhaustion has become something darker. Night shifts bleed into each other. I barely sleep 4 hours before the next one starts. My vision blurs on the drive home at 3 a.m. headlights smearing across the windshield. I stop at drive-through windows for black coffee just to keep my eyes open. Levi kept pushing for more money. His next tournament in Europe was make or break, he said. Mom backed him up every time. Don't let him lose this chance, Caitlin. You're the reliable one. 2 days before the crash, I took my car to a small garage near Overland Park for a quick wash. When I started the engine afterward, I heard a faint metallic scrape from underneath, like something loose dragging against the frame. I was bone-tired head-pounding from the previous shift, so I dismissed it as road noise or loose gravel. I just wanted to get home and collapse into bed. That final night, the rain came down in sheets. The highway was slick, wipers barely keeping up. I gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual, headlights cutting weak tunnels through the downpour. The brake pedal felt spongy when I tested it lightly at a light, softer than it should have been. I told myself it was the wet roads, nothing more. I didn't pull over. I kept driving. The rain came down in sheets that night on I-70, turning the highway into a slick black ribbon under my headlights. I was heading home after another brutal shift, the kind where the trauma bay never quieted. My hands ached from hours of compressions and IV starts. The wipers slapped back and forth, barely keeping the windshield clear. I pressed the brake pedal lightly at a merge ramp, and it sank too far, spongy, almost no resistance. A warning flickered in my mind, but exhaustion drowned it. I told myself it was the water on the rotors, nothing serious. I kept going. The semi ahead braked hard. I stomped the pedal. Nothing. The car didn't slow, it kept its speed, tires hydroplaning. I jerked the wheel, but the momentum carried me straight into the guardrail. Metal screamed against metal. The world spun, glass shattered, and everything went dark. When consciousness returned, it came in fragments, the hiss of oxygen through a mask. Sharp pain in my ribs with every breath. Tubes snaking across my arms. The steady beep of monitors. I was alive, but the realization hit like a second impact. I was in the ICU, the same unit I'd worked 1,000 nights. The nurse Adriana leaned over me, adjusting an IV line. "You're back," she said quietly. "You got lucky. Very lucky." I tried to speak, but my throat felt raw from the tube they'd pulled out earlier. I managed a hoarse whisper. "My family," Adriana paused, her expression careful. "They were notified right away. Police called them from the scene. They came by the hospital that night, stayed about 20 minutes, asked for your status, then left. They said they were on vacation in the Maldives for your brother's golf event. Couldn't postpone it. 20 minutes. That number landed like a slap. 20 minutes while I was being cut out of a wrecked car, airlifted, stabilized. And then they flew off to a beach resort. I asked for my phone when they finally let me have it. The screen lit up with a handful of messages from Mom. Praying for you, sweetie. Maldives is beautiful. Levi's killing it on the course. Attached was a photo of my brother grinning on a green ocean behind him. No missed calls, no voicemails asking how I felt. No, we're coming back. Just vacation updates. Suspicion coiled in my chest. The brakes hadn't just failed, they'd gone completely dead. I'd felt the pedal sink to the floor like it was disconnected. And that metallic scrape I'd heard 2 days earlier at the car wash, had it been something more, I requested the police report. The officer's notes were brief. Loss of control due to adverse weather and apparent driver fatigue. No mention of mechanical failure, no inspection of the brake system. I pressed Adriana can. They checked the car again. The brakes, they didn't work at all. She nodded slowly. The police towed it to an impound lot. If there's suspicion of mechanical issues, they'll investigate, but it takes time. Right now, it's classified as weather-related. Time. I had plenty of that lying here, hooked to machines, watching the IV drip. My body hurt in places I didn't know could hurt. Cracked ribs, bruised lungs, a concussion that made the room tilt if I moved too fast. But the real pain was deeper. The emptiness of the room. The silence from the people who were supposed to be there. I started jotting notes on the small pad the hospital provided, fragments of memory. The spongy pedal, the scrape under the car, Mom's quick trip to the hospital, the perfect Maldives alibi, the life insurance policy I'd signed 3 years ago, the one that would pay out $500,000 if I hadn't survived. Each note fed the growing knot of doubt. Why had they left so fast? Why no real concern? And why did the brakes fail exactly when I needed them most? I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the perforations to stay calm. The questions multiplied. Answers would come, but I had a feeling they wouldn't be the ones I wanted to hear. The nights in ICU blurred into one long, restless vigil. Pain pulled me awake at odd hours, ribs protesting every breath, the dull throb in my head refusing to fade. The room stayed dim except for the glow of monitors and the soft hallway light filtering through the glass partition. That's where I first noticed him. A tall figure stood just beyond the door, motionless in the corridor shadows. He didn't enter. He didn't speak. He simply watched, arms at his sides, face hidden in the half-dark. Sometimes he lingered for hours, then quietly left before the morning shift arrived. The second night, he returned. Same spot, same stillness. The third night, too. It became a rhythm I couldn't ignore, reliable in a way nothing else had been since the crash. I waited until Adriana came in for vitals check. "Someone's been standing outside my room every night," I said, voice still rough from the ventilator. She nodded without surprise. "Yes, a man. He's been here since your first night, asks about your condition quietly at the desk but never comes in. Just stands there looking through the glass while you sleep." My heart picked up speed. "Who is he?" "He won't give a name. Only says he wants to make sure you're not alone. He stays for hours, then leaves before dawn." I tried to see more clearly, but the glass and dim lighting turned him into a silhouette, dark coat, broad shoulders, nothing distinctive. Yet his presence felt strangely comforting. For the first time since waking up here, I didn't feel entirely abandoned. I started anticipating his arrival. When the hallway light shifted and his outline appeared, I'd pretend to sleep, eyes cracked just enough to watch. He never moved much, stood with hands in pockets or crossed arms, gaze fixed on me through the partition. One night he lifted a hand, slowly pressed his palm to the glass as if trying to reach across the barrier, then let it drop. The gesture was small, hesitant, but it lodged in my chest like something I couldn't name. Why would a stranger do this? No flowers, no card, no conversation, just silent vigil. And the deposit he'd left for my bills. Adriana mentioned it casually one evening. "He put down a large amount toward your account. Requested we keep his identity private. Hospital policy allows anonymous contributions, so we accepted it." The money part unsettled me most. Medical costs were mounting fast. IV drip scans, pain meds, the room itself. I'd seen enough patients get buried under debt. A stranger covering part of it without wanting credit felt impossible. Yet there it was. I lay there replaying the moment he'd touched the glass. It wasn't aggressive or threatening. It felt protective, almost tender. But why me? Why now? The contrast sharpened everything: my family's brief visit and quick departure, their vacation photos still popping up on my feed, versus this unknown man who showed up faithfully when no one else did. Questions circled in the quiet. Was he connected to the accident, a witness, or something else entirely I didn't know? But his consistency gnawed at me. In a place where everything felt uncertain, pain levels, recovery timeline, the truth about my breaks. This one thing remained steady. A shadow in the hallway. A hand on the glass. I didn't sleep much those nights. Instead, I watched the doorway, waiting for his silhouette to appear. When it did, a strange calm settled over me. Not trust, not yet, but something close. For the first time since the crash, I felt seen. Not by family, not by doctors, but by someone who asked for nothing in return. After several nights of watching that silent figure through the glass, he finally stepped inside. It was the first time. Tall, silver-haired eyes, tired but kind in a way that caught me off guard. He stayed near the doorway, not advancing further, voice low and steady. "I didn't want you waking up alone again." I pushed myself up slowly against the pillows, every movement sending fresh pain through my ribs. My voice came out weak, raspy from disuse. "Who are you? How do you know me?" He took a slow breath, then spoke the words that stopped everything. "I'm your biological father, Caitlin. Helen kept me hidden from the day you were born. She chose Paul and told everyone I didn't exist. I walked away when she was pregnant. I was scared, convinced I couldn't handle the responsibility, that I'd fail you both. Regret ate at me for years, but by then it was too late to come back." Shock hit like a fresh wave of anesthesia. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. He continued, tone measured, as if he'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. "I own a small garage just outside Overland Park. A week before your accident, Levi brought your car in for service. I didn't work on it, another mechanic handled the job, but I saw the brake lines had already been tampered with. Fresh cuts, fluid residue that didn't match normal wear. It was deliberate. I wanted to warn you, but I didn't have your number. When the crash happened, I knew immediately who was behind it. I came straight to the hospital that night and have been here every night since, standing outside making sure you were cared for. I put down a deposit on your bill so the hospital wouldn't delay treatment." I stared at him, pulse roaring in my ears. "Do you have proof?" He shook his head. "Just the garage security footage showing Levi dropping off the car and my own eyes on the altered brakes. No audio, no smoking gun. But I know why they did it. The life insurance policy you signed 3 years ago. $500,000 with Helen, Paul, and Levi as beneficiaries. They needed the payout more than they needed you." Everything aligned in a sickening rush. The spongy pedal that night, the metallic scrape. I'd dismissed the flawless Maldives alibi, the brief hospital visit followed by silence. The policy I'd bought to protect them suddenly felt like a loaded gun they'd turned on me. I swallowed hard. "Why tell me now?" "Because you deserve the truth. And because I couldn't stay away any longer. I've failed you once. I won't do it again unless you tell me to leave." He didn't push, didn't demand belief or forgiveness. He simply stood there waiting. I searched his face for lies, for some angle, but found only quiet regret. The room felt smaller, the monitors louder. My mind raced through every phone call from Mom, every transfer I'd approved, every time I'd told myself family came first. He spoke again, softer. "I'm here if you need me. I don't expect anything." I never did. Then he turned and left, footsteps fading down the hallway. The door clicked shut, leaving me in the hum of machines and the storm inside my chest. Shock gave way to a slow-burning anger, not just at him for leaving years ago, but at the life I'd built around people who might have tried to end it. The questions I'd carried since waking up now had a shape, a face, a motive. I stared at the empty doorway for a long time. For the first time, the isolation didn't feel absolute. But the truth he'd brought felt heavier than any injury. Helen and Paul arrived, demanding discharge papers. Helen swept into the room first, her voice layered with false concern. "How are you feeling, sweetie? We've been so worried." Her eyes darted everywhere, bedside table, monitors, the doorway, as if searching for something she hoped wasn't there. She stepped closer, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "The doctors say you're stable enough to come home. We need to get you out of here." I kept my expression neutral. "I'm still sore." "What's the rush?" She waved a hand dismissively. "You know how hospitals are expensive, and Levi's tournament schedule is tight. We can't stay away forever." Paul stood behind her, arms crossed, silent as usual. His gaze fixed on me, not with worry but calculation. Helen leaned in, voice dropping to a near whisper, trembling slightly. "Do you remember anything from that night? Anything at all?" I met her eyes steadily. Just the rain. And the brakes not working. She exhaled a quick release of tension, but her shoulders stayed rigid. That's all. Nothing else. Before I could answer, Adriana entered with the tablet updating my chart. Helen's gaze snapped to it. What's that? Adriana glanced at me, then at Helen. The visitor log. Someone's been coming every night. Helen reached for it almost too eagerly. She scrolled, fingers trembling. When she reached the repeated entry, her face drained of color. The tablet shook in her grip. She nearly dropped it. No. He's here, she breathed, voice cracking with panic. She looked up, eyes wide with something close to terror. Not anger, not guilt, pure fear. Fear that the secret she'd buried for decades was about to surface. Fear that the lie she'd built her entire family around, the lie that Levi was the golden child, that I'd always been the reliable outsider, was crumbling. I watched her unravel. Mom. Who is it? She snapped the tablet closed. No one. Just someone from the past. The door opened again. Ralph stepped in, calm but resolute. He looked straight at Helen. I'm here for my daughter. The word daughter landed like a stone in still water. Helen recoiled as if struck. You're lying. You have no right. Paul finally spoke, voice low and hard. Get out. This is family business. Ralph didn't move. She is my family, and she deserves to know the truth. I pushed myself up straighter, ignoring the stab of pain in my side. I already know. The brakes were tampered with. Levi took my car to the garage. The security footage shows it. And the Maldives photos metadata proves they were posted from here, not there. Helen's breath hitched. She turned to me, pleading. Caitlin, don't listen to him. He's manipulating you. But the panic in her eyes told the real story. She wasn't afraid of evidence of sabotage, not yet. She was terrified of Ralph simply existing, of the paternity he'd carried silently all these years being spoken aloud. Terrified that her carefully constructed world favoring Levi, using me as the endless financial resource, would collapse under the weight of one undeniable fact. Ralph spoke quietly. I saw the brake lines myself. Cut clean. Deliberate. I couldn't stop it in time, but I'm here now. Helen shook her head violently. Lies, all lies. I looked at her, really looked. The tan, the forced smile, the quick departure after 20 minutes in ICU. The messages about beaches while I fought to breathe. The policy worth $500,000 with their names on it. I reached for my phone. I'm calling the police. Helen lunged forward. Don't do this. Think about Levi. Think about us. I dialed. When the officer answered, I spoke clearly. I need to report suspected tampering with my vehicle, attempted harm. I have a witness who saw the sabotage at a garage, security footage of my brother dropping off the car, and proof the Maldives vacation was faked. Metadata on social media posts shows they never left the country. The officer took my details, promised to send someone to take a formal statement. We'll open an official investigation immediately. Helen backed away, face ashen. Paul pulled her toward the door. This isn't over, he muttered. They left without another word. The room fell silent except for the monitors. Adriana stood frozen, then whispered, You did the right thing. I stared at the empty doorway. The storm inside me wasn't just anger anymore, it was clarity. The people I'd carried for years had tried to end me for money, and the man who'd stood outside my room every night had given me the first real piece of truth. The investigation would take time, but I was done waiting for answers from people who'd never given them. I ended it completely. Right there in the hospital room, with the monitors still beeping their indifferent rhythm, I opened my banking app. Finger by finger, I canceled every automatic payment I'd set up for them. Medical bills, credit cards they used in my name, even the small recurring transfers for Levi's training fees. No more. The screen refreshed, showing 0 pending outflows. It felt like cutting a rope I'd been tied to for years. Next, I logged into my insurance portal. The policy I'd bought to protect them now had my name as the only one who could change beneficiaries. I removed Helen, Paul, and Levi. If anything happened to me after this, the money wouldn't go to them. It would go where I decided, charity perhaps, or savings for myself. HIPAA forms were simple. I updated my emergency contact to Adriana's name at the hospital. No family access anymore. When my mother returned later that day alone this time, Paul waiting in the hallway, I didn't wait for her to speak first. "It's done," I said. "No more support. No transfers, no beneficiaries, no emergency contact. I know about the staged accident. The police are investigating." Her face twisted, anger, fear, desperation all at once. "You can't do this? After everything we've been through, Levi needed a sister who paid for his dreams," I cut in. "Not a target for your insurance payout." She stepped closer, voice rising. "You're throwing away your family over lies from some stranger. He's not a stranger. And the evidence isn't lies. The garage footage, the fake vacation posts, the brake lines cut clean. It's all going to the police." Helen laughed bitterly, but it cracked at the edges. "You think they'll believe you? You were exhausted driving in the rain. Accidents happen." Paul appeared in the doorway, then faced stone. "You have no proof." I met his stare. "I have enough. And the investigation is already underway." They left without another word. Helen's footsteps echoed down the corridor, sharp and fast, like someone running from something she couldn't outrun. The days that followed were quiet in the hospital, but loud in my mind. Detectives came twice, professional, thorough. They took my full statement, listened without interruption, as I laid out the timeline, the spongy brake pedal, the metallic scrape. I'd dismissed Levi's visit to the garage, Ralph's account of seeing the tampering, the social media metadata proving the Maldives photos were taken locally, timestamps matching when they were supposedly abroad. One officer nodded as he noted everything. "We'll subpoena the garage footage and run forensics on the vehicle. If the brakes show intentional damage and the alibi doesn't hold, this moves from suspicion to charges." They left with copies of my insurance policy, bank statements showing years of transfers, and screenshots of the vacation posts. The prosecutor assigned to the case contacted me later that week. "Attempted insurance fraud, conspiracy, vehicular assault with intent. These are serious felonies in Missouri. If the evidence holds, they'll face trial. Prison time is likely, along with heavy fines and restitution." I didn't feel triumph, just a cold clarity. The people who'd raised me had weighed my life against $500,000 and decided I was worth more dead than alive. The betrayal wasn't sudden, it had been building in every just this once request, every time I'd said yes when I should have said no. My brother texted once after the detectives visited their house. "This is insane. You're destroying us." I didn't reply. Levi had always been the priority, the tournaments, the sponsors, the future. I'd been the ATM. Now the account was closed. Ralph visited twice more while I recovered. He didn't push for forgiveness or explanations. He brought coffee from a drive-thru near the hospital, sat quietly, answered questions when I asked. He admitted his mistakes again, the years he'd stayed away, the fear that kept him silent. But he stayed present now, no demands attached. When discharge day came, I walked out on my own terms. No one from my former family waited in the lobby. The paperwork was signed, the bills partially covered by Ralph's deposit, the rest in my name. I stepped into the Kansas City air-cool carrying the promise of fall, and felt the weight lift, not all at once, but enough to breathe. The investigation continued. Detectives called with updates. Brake lines confirmed, tampered garage footage subpoenaed, and showing Levi's drop-off metadata on the Maldives posts, exposing the lie. Warrants were issued. Charges filed: attempted insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, vehicular assault with intent to cause serious injury. Felony counts, each carrying prison time and fines that would ruin them financially even before trial. I didn't attend the arraignment. I didn't need to see their faces in court. The process was moving forward without me having to push it anymore. Restitution would cover my medical costs. Their credit would tank. Levi's sponsors would pull out. The life they'd built on my back was collapsing under its own weight. I moved into a small apartment near the hospital, close enough to walk to work when I returned. Ralph helped with the boxes, no questions asked. He never asked for more than I was willing to give. For the first time in years, my future wasn't tied to theirs. It was mine. Discharge day arrived without fanfare. I walked out of University Health on my own strength, the cool Kansas City air brushing my face for the first time in weeks. No one waited in the lobby, no awkward goodbyes, just the quiet freedom of leaving behind the sterile room and everything it represented. I found a small apartment near the hospital, close enough to walk when I returned to work. The place had one bedroom, a tiny balcony overlooking a quiet street, and enough space for me to breathe. Ralph helped carry the boxes. He didn't ask to stay or demand explanations. He simply showed up when I needed an extra pair of hands, then left without lingering. His presence felt steady, not demanding exactly what I'd needed all along. Healing started in the park a few blocks away. I'd go there most afternoons, sitting on a bench while light rain fell. Kansas City autumns carry that gentle drizzle, the kind that soaks without soaking through. Leaves turned gold and red, drifting slowly to the ground. Ralph sometimes joined me. We'd sit in silence, watching people walk dogs or jog past. He never filled the quiet with unnecessary words. When I spoke, he listened. When I didn't, he stayed anyway. One afternoon I asked him about the years he'd missed. He admitted it plainly. He'd been scared, convinced he couldn't provide, convinced walking away was kinder. I was wrong, he said. I let fear decide for me. I won't make that mistake again unless you tell me to go. I didn't tell him to go. Instead, I let him stay on my terms. No pressure, no expectations. He respected the boundaries I'd finally learned to set. The legal process unfolded in the background. Detectives kept me updated. The brake lines confirmed sabotaged garage footage subpoenaed, and showing Levi's drop-off metadata exposing the vacation lie. Charges were filed: attempted insurance fraud, conspiracy, vehicular assault with intent. Felonies in Missouri carry real consequences: prison sentences of several years, substantial fines, mandatory restitution to cover my medical costs and investigation expenses. Their criminal records would follow them forever, closing doors on jobs, loans, housing. Levi's golf sponsors pulled out immediately. His career stalled before it truly started. Debt mounted without my financial safety net. The family they'd built on exploitation began to fracture under scrutiny. I didn't follow the court dates closely. I didn't need to watch their downfall to feel closure. The truth had already set me free. Looking back, I see it clearly now. Family isn't defined by blood or obligation. It's the people who show up when the world falls apart. No strings, no scorekeeping. Ralph had failed me once, but he chose to show up every night after that. He didn't erase the past. He simply refused to repeat it. That choice mattered more than any apology. The lesson isn't complicated, but its hard-won boundaries aren't selfish. Their survival. I'd spent years believing love meant giving everything, even when it cost me my health, my safety, my future. I was wrong. Love doesn't demand your destruction. Real love stands beside you in the rain without asking you to drown. To anyone reading this, if you're carrying the weight of people who only hear me, you are allowed to stop. You are allowed to protect yourself. The guilt they trained into you will scream loudest right before it fades. On the other side is quiet. Real quiet. The kind where you finally hear your own voice. I still think about them sometimes, not with anger anymore, but with distance. Their choices led them to courtrooms and consequences. Mine led me here to a park bench, rain falling softly, Ralph sitting nearby, no words needed. Family is who shows up, not who takes, not who hides. Who shows up? And sometimes the people who show up are the ones you never expected. That's the truth I carry now. It's enough.